Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
All right, Pete, we are back. Films and Stuff. New day, new segment, new television series to discuss.
That's right. What was once known as extra credit assignments has now been rebranded to Stream or Skip.
Thank you to our marketing consultants. We are now talking about Stream or Skip. Pretty self-explanatory. We have chosen shows for each other, so there's no bias. And we've watched at least 2 episodes. I think in both of our cases, we watched the entire season. And then we tell you, listeners, should you stream it or skip it?
Yep. And the whole point is that the shows that we've selected for each other are not in our wheelhouse. Because, we don't want to be bogged down with always watching the same kinds of shows, whether it's sci-fi or westerns or whatever. So there are some sitcoms in there. There's some foreign shows in there. There's some romantic comedies in there. The whole point, or anime, the whole point is that these are shows that Ethan wouldn't normally watch or Pete wouldn't normally watch, so that we can give you a better idea of what's, available on these different platforms.
True. And we should also say they're also intended to be a little bit under the radar. Obviously, the Netflix most popular now type shows, it's not difficult to discover them. This is intended to discover something that you may not otherwise see.
Exactly. So while certainly there are some quote-unquote A-list titles on both our lists, there are also quite a few titles which I think, I've never heard of, which I'm pretty sure Ethan hasn't heard of either.
True. Pete, what did you have this week to watch?
So this week I had to watch a Netflix show called Nightflyers. And I think this was a relatively old show, actually made by Sci-Fi.
Oh, man. Yeah, you're right.
And I think Netflix just grabbed the streaming rights to it. And I gotta say, I've got my notes out here. So on paper, this show has a lot going for it that normally I would love. It's a sci-fi show. It's set in space. It's about, visiting an alien civilization that may have the answer to all of humanity's woes.
Oh.
It's got a little
definitely
bit
sounds like your wheelhouse.
It definitely sounds like my normal wheelhouse. But I gotta say, this for me
the but.
was a huge skip.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take a step back. Let's talk about the things that are good.
Let's talk about good. Yes.
Unbelievable visual effects for a TV series, for a 1-season miniseries, whatever it is. I think there's only that 1 season that came out. Yeah. Some of the sci-fi, the visual effects are some of the finest I've ever seen for a TV series.
Wow.
In fact, rivaling that of some movies. That's how good it was. Genuinely fantastic. So I can't fault the design of the ship. I can't fault the design of some of the visual elements.
Spacesuits and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, all of that kind of stuff. Really, really, really well done. The very first episode, I kind of like what they did. The opening scene of the first episode is actually in the present time, and it shows like everything falling apart. And then it does that classic trope of 1 month earlier.
Yeah.
And then they build up to that. And I like that. It's an old trope, but it's a fun trope because it's always fun to see the end and how you get to that end.
Yes.
That was good. Unfortunately, that's all that I found to be.
So those are the pros.
That was the pro.
What's
the cons? Each episode is like an hour plus long. So these are long, like proper drama, long show episodes.
That's a con to you.
No, it's not. It's a con only in the sense that I couldn't get myself interested. And now I know that in the old day, or not the old days, but these days especially, it's more normal for you to start watching a TV show and then have to stick it through 1, 2, or 3 episodes before you get bit in.
Yeah.
I couldn't get myself to do it. I just couldn't get myself to do it because there are a couple of tropes in there. There's a military squadron. There's a character that's got psychic telekinetic abilities, known as an L1. Then you have this is a ship that's been hired out to conduct a specific mission. The crew works for the captain. The captain has been hired by this, non-military client. And then all of a sudden, the non-military client has the psychic guy with them. The military guys don't like the psychic guys. And so it starts like this civil war on the ship. It's... have you ever watched the show or the movie Event Horizon?
No, I have not.
Okay, so I am not normally a horror movie guy at all.
Nor am I. No
but
way.
I must say, Event Horizon, quite possibly one of the best space horror movies I've ever seen.
Oh,
it scared the living pee out of me, but it was
too
unbelievable.
No,
Lawrence Fishburne. I can't even remember the whole cast, but it was a really good show. I think Sam Neill was in it as well. And this
it's
show
called Event Horizon.
Event Horizon, yeah.
Okay.
And this movie show has a lot of Event Horizon feelings for me.
Is it supposed to be scary? I mean, is Nightflyers supposed to be scary or thriller?
It's supposed to be like a mystery thriller drama on a space station while they're doing this mission to meet an extraterrestrial life form. And that life form, they want to get in touch with that life form because they want to make contact with aliens for the first time in human history, and B, that's why they've got this psychic powered human. And we're living in an alternate future where there are humans who have psychic abilities, and the reason is that they looked at the brainwaves of the psychic, and they can see that it's the same pattern that they find in the aliens. So they think that would be the easiest way for them to communicate is with a human psychic. Again, on paper, so far this is ticking all the right boxes. But I think in terms of execution, it just fell flat for me. I can't articulate it perfectly, but it felt, A, long in the tooth, B, it felt like it was borrowing from a lot of different sources and not in a good way. So it felt like, I'm sitting there with my notebook, going through my list of top 10 favorite space movies. Mm-hmm. I'm taking all the elements from those space movies that I really like. Mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of Aliens in there. There's a little bit of Event Horizon in there. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of Jurassic Park in there. There's a little bit of, all of these things. And then they're saying, okay, let's put all of those elements onto one spaceship. Okay, go. Oh, there's a little bit of Resident Evil in there. So, for example, there's the captain of the ship. We only ever see him through a hologram. He's supposed to be a recluse. He doesn't show up anywhere. He's only a hologram. And I haven't seen the entire series, but I am willing to bet you $100 right here, right now. We learn by the end of the season that the captain actually isn't a hologram, but it's an artificial intelligence posing as a human who's created a backstory that he's a recluse, but that's just so that he can kind of help control his crewmen. So the crew doesn't know it right now, but they're actually working for the ship. That's my feeling, and God knows I like that you've already. I like that you've already unpacked it. But I'm willing to bet $100.
So this is a hard skip, in your opinion.
It is, and it's not even a show you can keep on in the background because the problem is that it does require your attention, again, because of its length and because of its relative complexity. So I can't, and the visuals are, again, gorgeous, but it doesn't disguise from the fact that there are just so many tropes that you've seen time and time again. I couldn't do it. I couldn't.
Only
I
one
sat through
season?
2 episodes.
Only one
Yeah.
season?
1 season, 10 episodes, and I couldn't. do it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that you had to spend time on 2 episodes. I'm happy that you got something out of it, which is to tell people not to watch this, because I have to say, I agree with you. Based on the cover art, based on kind of the Netflix trailer, based on the description, I would have thought that this would have been much better than you
Yep.
than
I
you
think,
said it was.
genuinely speaking, if you and I were bored and if we found this on our queue, we would be maybe not excited, but we would have been like, oh yeah, I can see myself spending the next 10 hours watching this.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, after 2 hours into that, I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't be bothered.
That is Nightflyers on Netflix, the homework of Pete, and he ranks it as a skip. So we skip it. You'll never hear from it again. Shall I go on to mine?
Please.
So I had The Staircase, which is on HBO Max. It is 1 season. It's from 2022. And it stars some folks that we know very, very well. Colin Firth.
Yeah.
Toni Collette. Sophie Turner. Patrick Schwarzenegger. Dane DeHaan. A whole bunch of other Parker Posey.
All-star cast.
Yeah, it's quite a cast up and down, I have to say. I mean, it was on HBO. And it is based on a true story of a writer. His name is Michael Peterson or Patterson. He was living in Durham, North Carolina. Durham is where Duke University is located, the east coast of the U.S., and he and Toni Collette had a very interesting family. She was a executive at a telecom and apparently making all the money. He was a writer, but as a lot of writers are, he was just getting like small advances and wasn't really publishing anything. He considered running for city council and wasn't successful. And their family consisted of they were both, I think, on their second marriages. She brought a daughter to the family, and he brought 2 sons and also 2 adopted daughters. So we have a total of 5 kids. 2 of them looked at him as their natural father. 1 of them looked at her as her natural mother, and 2 that were adopted by him when he was based in the military in Germany. So again, based on a true story, his wife, Toni Collette, dies, and he finds his wife at the bottom of the stairs in a pool of blood. He calls 911 and says, "My wife fell down the stairs." And the paramedics come and they look at the scene and they're like, no way. Like, we've seen people fall down the stairs before. This is not what they look like. And this is not what the scene looks like when someone falls down the stairs. There is, you just have to see like the visual. There is way more blood, and it's in a, let's say, splatter pattern that it would indicate something much more dramatic than a stair fall. So he is arrested, and it essentially divides the family. Of course, the now deceased mother, her natural daughter, of course, thinks that there's foul play. The 2 sons, of course, support the father. The 2 adopted daughters, kind of caught in the middle, where their sister is now basically not talking to them. Their brothers are not willing to kind of be a little bit more objective about some of the things that don't add up. And if you've seen Defending Jacob, that is a show where a young teen was alleged to kill a classmate. And instead of having kind of the jury verdict at the end, they do it about in the middle of the season. And then there's a whole bunch of drama that takes place after that verdict, which makes you, first you question, did he do it? Didn't he do it? And then at the end, you have more questions that could sway you in either direction. Here it's very similar, where Colin Firth's character has his trial in about the middle of the season. And then there's a whole bunch of drama that happens after that makes you maybe rethink your opinion. But throughout the first half of the season, they make you do a very good job of however you see him is how you see his innocence or guilt, right? I mean, intentionally, they make the character a little bit wishy-washy. Is he an asshole? Or is he just kind of a weird guy who's misunderstood, right? Is this a series of bad coincidences? Or is it something much more malicious, right? And you're supposed to come to a conclusion about him. And then after the verdict, all the other things are exposed, and you're supposed to either change your mind or it's supposed to reinforce what you already believed. This show is a little bit different in the fact that even though it's based on a true story, there was, at the time of his trial, a documentary that was made in real time on this trial. It got a lot of media attention, and there was actually a documentary made. So what this show does is it kind of shows not only the events and the trial, but it also shows the documentary being made in the background. So it shows how there's always a film crew around him. It even shows kind of the producers of the documentary who are also have very, very dramatically different opinions in terms of whether this guy did it or did not do it. Even they don't agree amongst themselves whether or not he's innocent or guilty. Each of them pulls on, let's say, a piece of information, and they use that to kind of justify their conclusion. And there's a lot of loose ends that don't always add up. So I'm not going to give a total spoiler, but let me come to my conclusion about whether this is a stream or skip. First of all, Colin Firth is fantastic. Do you remember him from The King's Speech?
I do.
Yeah. The fact that the same actor could play kind of this rumpled, disorganized, assholey, in a lot of ways weird, like suburban father, could also play like the king of a country, I think is just phenomenal. Like, I really, really believe him in the way that he dresses, the way he acts, the way his mannerisms. He plays this role exceptionally well, that you would never see him as kind of Colin Firth or the King or any of the other roles that he's kind of had, right? And I think that's really the mark of a great actor. For example, like if Harrison Ford would do this, I would just see Harrison Ford, or I would see Indiana Jones, or I'd see Han Solo, right? I could never see a suburban kind of out of work novelist. Yeah. So Colin Firth does exceptional work. Toni Collette does as well. I don't mean to diminish her. The rest of the cast is great. I rate this as a skip, only because, to be honest, if you really, it's not my genre. Maybe that's exactly the reason. I mean, it is based on a true story. You can go to Wikipedia. You can, in 5 minutes, you can kind of get the summary and you'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. Wow, that's crazy. What a series of weird stuff that, combined for this, very strange outcome. You can do it very fast. You're not missing anything. If you really enjoy these kind of like murder mysteries and you really want to watch, how many episodes are there? 10? 8? If you really want to watch let me see how many episodes there are. There are 8 episodes. If you really want to spend 8 hours back and forth being shocked and aghast, and that's your thing, then it's absolutely a stream. For me, it's not. It's a lot of time where I'm just kind of asking to like be taken to the conclusion. What's the outcome? Yeah, like just tell me, did the guy do it or didn't he do it? You know, what happened? I just wanted to kind of skip to the end. I wasn't really enjoying the journey, even though it's extremely well done. So for me personally, it is a skip. But if you love the murder mysteries, you don't want to read the Wikipedia, and you have absolutely no idea how this turns out, go for it. And I should also say, maybe another point on the genre is I'm always a little bit queasy. I mean, you and I, Pete, we watch a lot of films and television, and a lot of them are somewhat violent and bloody. That's just comes with the territory.
Yep.
I'm a little bit squeamish when it comes to kind of like one-on-one domestic violence. You know, when it talks about kind of the stuff between husband and wife and killing or not killing. For me, it was just a little bit like graphic and uncomfortable. So I have to say that's another reason why it's not really my genre and why I skipped it. I just don't need to see so many images and photos and discussing, you know, like the graphic or details. But it is based on a true story. And like with all very good true stories, there's a lot of events that come together that make it so unique, right? Like it's not just did he do it or didn't he do it? There's obviously a lot in his past. There's a lot in her past. And all those kind of seemingly random events come together in a way that it really causes you to interpret this however, you know, you're prone to interpret it. So if you love the murder mystery, binge it. If it's not your thing and you're not really comfortable with like domestic violence, skip it. But it is on HBO Plus. It's quite new. So if it's your thing, watch it before everyone starts to talk about it and tells you what the ending is.
Okay, perfect. So that's a skip for Nightflyers, which is a bit of a surprise given that it is our preferred genre and again on paper ticks a lot of the boxes.
Yep.
A skip for The Staircase, but for different reasons, only because it's not your preferred genre. But if you are a murder mystery buff, it may actually be a stream.
Yeah, if you're one of the people that loves like watching CSI and the other kind of like crime thrillers, you'll quite like this. If it's not at all your thing and you're not looking to decide whether someone was killed with a blunt instrument or not, it's not your thing.
Right.
Okay. Pete, do we have to decide what we're watching next week now? What our next homework assignment is?
Yes. Why don't we do that? Why don't we do that so we can tell people what they can expect to hear from us next week?
What did I get?
A 16.
Whoa! In from the cold? All right.
Yep. And I got a 6. Listeners, I'll be watching Candy on Hulu. I don't know anything about it. I hope it's a food show. And Ethan will be watching In From the Cold on Netflix.
Sounds cold.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that either.
Nor do I. Okay. So next week we've got more stream or skip recommendations.
Yep. And just before we go, if I recall correctly, while we were doing stream or skip for this week, you did come across another show that I thought you wanted to talk about for a quick second. Maybe we can talk 5 minutes on that? 5
minutes. I watched Night Sky, which is on Amazon Prime, and it stars J.K. Simmons and Sissy Spacek. And I have to say, against a lot of expectations, I was totally awestruck by this show. I binged all 8 episodes over the course of 2 to 3 nights, maybe, and I love it. Let me summarize. First, let me give comparisons. It is similar to Lost. Remember the plane went down in a Caribbean island and the folks were stranded on the island? it is similar to Outer Range, which is also on Amazon Prime.
Yep.
Where JK and Sissy are a old retirement couple. They are still madly in love with each other. They don't have any kids living with them. They're on their own. And they have let's say, a secret in their backyard. And this secret has a sci-fi element to it. And for years and years and years, it's just their little thing. No one else knows about it. They haven't told anyone about it. And now suddenly it has, let's say, activated. And they realize more and more exactly what it is. And of course, there's a group and another group. And these groups have separate interests towards this thing, and they're a little bit like caught in the middle. I think that's the best way that I can summarize it without giving away any spoilers that you'll see in kind of the first few episodes. I was really, really surprised with how into the show I got. I wouldn't say it's funny. There's no ha-ha stuff. But if you know the kind of like J.K. Simmons, he's very good at kind of like these sharp lines or this kind of dull humor or sarcasm. So there's a few times I laughed just because of how he delivers stuff. I'm not a huge Sissy Spacek fan, and I feel like her character is a little bit annoying to me in the show. JK is definitely the more sympathetic one. But honestly, I really got into this. There's a lot of other characters, much younger, who are introduced, and it's definitely worth a watch if you like kind of like sci-fi things like Lost or like Outer Range.
Okay.
So for me, it's an absolute stream.
Okay, so I will put that on my list of shows to watch.
Yes, sir. Pete, that was
Stream or Skip.
That was Stream or Skip. And now I think on our next episode, we're going to be talking about the other feature film we watched on Netflix, which is The Gray Man, with our good friend Ryan Gosling, right?
That's absolutely right. Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, Billy Bob Thornton, who I haven't seen in a long time.
Ana de Armas, yeah.
So catch up with us on the next episode.
Yes, thanks to everyone for joining. And if you've got any suggestions for Pete and I to do the dirty work for you, we'd be happy to watch it and give you the stream or skip recommendation. Yeah.
Great idea. Email us aloha@filmsandstuffpodcast.com or tweet at us at F&S Podcast. Tell us, are there any shows that you've heard about, whether they're really famous or not famous, but you're not sure if you want to watch it? We will gladly put it on our stream or skip list, and we'll make sure to watch it and give you our initial impressions on whether you should bother to stream it or skip it.
Indeed, we will. Pete, listeners, thank you for your time. Wishing you all a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.